Well, hello, good people. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my son, Michael Anthony Fitness. And as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Um, I'm a jack of all trades, okay? And most of the things I have learned over the years from actually doing or trying to figure it out. There's a great, resource, of course, YouTube. Not every YouTube video is a good video to learn things. And I have grown up in a house that was built in the 1870s, so I was always used to an old house. And what you're looking at right here is like a piece of wood from a 200-year-old house. This is actually a floor joist that I've saved and I'm going to go ahead and reuse. Here, old tongue and groove flooring that was from a shed that we're going to be using to actually make some furniture. So I have a lot of experience with things. Now, let me say this, and this means no disrespect to anybody, but if you're going to look for help from Facebook, be careful what you take from that. People will give you what they've done, which is nothing wrong with it. But a lot of times if you're actually going there and saying, oh, well, let me take what people say on Facebook as how I should approach something, then you may have some problems. The reason I'm doing this video is somebody had posted in this old house, which I've posted a lot of videos and stuff on there, about working with plaster, that they've got some cracks in their plaster and how to fix it. And there's tons and tons of ways people have gone through and said how they fixed it or what you need to do. And I see things in there that just literally made me cringe because they say, oh, you just get some joint compound and fill it in. Well, here's the problem with doing this. When you have, and I've learned this because I've been working on a 200-year-old house. In fact, I can tell you verbatim that sometimes when you work on an old house, things that you do that are modern ways of doing things will do more harm than actually just leaving it alone. Case in point, at the red brick house, they had the gutters the downspouts were gone, and so the water would run down the side of the house. It would freeze up in the wintertime, and some of the bricks got damaged. If you've ever noticed on really old houses, the top of the chimneys, there's a problem. It's because they freeze up. They're porous, and they need to breathe. The mortar that's in there is lime. It's a lime putty that will expand and contract. If you go through and you point up those bricks with new bricks right now, which are hard bricks that don't take the moisture the same way, and use regular mortar, what happens when the bricks freeze and contract, those other ones don't. And it's almost like rejecting a kidney. And that's literally what happened to the red brick house. That the new work that they put in to try and fix it, the house didn't accept it, and it literally made the problem worse. So you have to understand this as a principle. Most people have no idea about plaster. Plaster, lime plaster, which was all the rage, which is what they originally did, is actually lime, hydrated lime that is actually mixed up with the water, becomes a putty, and you mix it with sand. That's it. That's all it is. And what happens is when you put that on the walls, it becomes like stone again. The great thing about lime plaster or making lime putty is, you can go to, not everybody has hydrated lime, but if you get the hydrated limes, okay, not the kind that you put on your yard, but hydrated lime, you mix it with water. Make sure you wear gloves because it literally will suck the moisture and stuff out of your hands. Wear eye protection because it will really irritate it. But it's just mixed with water. You take that lime putty, you put it in a bucket, and you end up having water on top of it. It'll last for a couple of years as long as it doesn't freeze. And you can just take some of that lime and you're mixing it with sand to make your plaster. Now, in the person's problem that they had, where they have small cracks, first thing you have to find out is how extensive is it? Is this where the plaster is pulling away from the lath? And if it is, you need to get rid of all that loose plaster and then, of course, use the sand putty. Or is this just like a hairline crack? Because what you'll have as it cures will be cracks in the lime that sometimes they'll come and sometimes they'll go back together. And this is where you can make a finished plaster, which is using marble dust and the lime putty. And it's going to be very, very thin to go through to fill in those hairline cracks. I just had to do that at my house. There's a couple places where I've learned over time of getting better with smoothing out plaster, because there is an art to it. You're going to have a hawk, and you're going to have your pool trowel. I like using a pool trowel that's stainless steel and putting it on, and then I like that sanded look, so I use a sponge trowel to give me that sanded feel. Of course, if you don't like that sanded feel, you end up using, of course, the wood trowel to bring it to the surface and so on. But my point here on all of this is be careful if you're looking for advice from Facebook. People are going to go ahead and tell you, some people will actually try and tell you stuff that's just completely wrong, hoping that you'll screw up. Others may not have a clue. And when I see people say, oh, I used mesh tape, on there, and then joint compound on there, here's the problem. And here's the great thing about plaster that people don't know. A lot of times what you'll get is plaster will be used in pool areas because it literally sucks the moisture. Any moisture in the air, it pulls out. And so at the red brick house in the wintertime, we put a humidifier in there for the plants because it gets very, very dry. And you will have this kind of fresh air feel to it. It's very good, actually, environmentally. Joint compound, drywall, and things like that, moisture is the enemy. And by putting those two together, it's not a good mix, because as the plaster is pulling all that moisture out of the air, it's now hitting the joint compound, and it's going to end up creating that moisture, which could create mold as an issue. So that's my best advice. There's places in Pennsylvania, Limeworks, that's up there, where you can actually order, a bucket of finished plaster and be able to just plaster that spot on the wall, and things. Or I have a building supply place where I can buy, a bag of hydrated lime for about $20 and basically make a 5-gallon bucket of that for $20. And then all I need is some mason sand or a bag of marble dust to go ahead and be able to mix up plaster. And what I've done is I've mixed up a couple of buckets of the lime putty and have it down in the cellar, so if I ever need to, I can go ahead and mix that with the sand or the marble and go ahead, boom, it's ready to go up. And one other note too, when you make your lime putty, it's actually good to make it and let it actually cure for about a month in the bucket with the water on top of it. So that's my tips right now to try and help out this person who has got cracks in their plaster. And after going through and having plaster and having taken off a section where we decided we're just going to put drywall, I really like plaster a lot better. It's a lot more labor intense, but it's just such a nice feel after it. All right, back to work here in the workshop, where we're making using our CNC machine to make plaques and stuff, and of course saving some of this old wood. And if you have any questions or anything, leave a message in the comments there and say, hey, I got a problem that I need help getting fixed, and we'll be sure to get back with you. Peace.